Some mysteries refuse to fade, don't they? They dig into your brain, clinging to the corners of your mind, and in the dead of night, they resurface. Today, we're stepping deep into that unsettling world of true crime where the questions far outnumber the answers. These cases are not just stories. They're real. They're chilling. And they leave marks on the people who lived them and on those of us who dare to look too closely. Think you're ready for this? Because I'm not so sure I am. Picture this. It's Christmas Eve, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia. Snow might be falling, children's laughter fills the house, and the glow of a Christmas tree paints warm light across the walls. For the Sodder family, it should have been a night of joy. George and Jenny Sodder, Italian immigrants who built their lives in America, were raising 10 children in a bustling, loving household. But by morning, that vibrant home was reduced to ashes. And what happened that night would haunt not just the Sodder family, but everyone who's heard their story. The fire started in the early hours. It spread quickly, engulfing the house in a matter of moments. George and Jenny escaped with 4 of their children, but five of them were nowhere to be found. Sylvia, the youngest, was just a baby held safely in her mother's arms. But her siblings, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, they vanished. Despite the blaze wreaking havoc on the home, no remains were found in the ashes. Not a single bone. No trace of them at all. Why? The official explanation pointed to faulty wiring. But there were too many things that just didn't make sense. First, the phone line had been cut deliberately. Who did that? And why? Then, there was the missing ladder that could have helped George save his children. That ladder was later found tossed in a ditch some distance from the house. Suspicious doesn't even begin to describe it. And what about the accounts of a firefighter who claimed there were no human remains in the ashes? Or the mysterious reports of strange men spotted watching the Sodder children days before the fire? Then came the sightings. Over the years, multiple people claimed to have seen the missing children alive. One woman said she served them breakfast at a diner hours after the fire. Another reported spotting them in a car traveling far from Fayetteville. The most haunting detail? A photo arrived in the mail decades later, showing a young man who looked strikingly like one of the missing children. On the back, a cryptic note read, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie. Ill boys. A9132 or 35. Weird, right? But it didn't lead to any definitive answers. You can only imagine the torment this family endured, the questions that consumed them. George spent the rest of his life chasing leads. He even put up a billboard offering a reward for answers. A billboard that stood for decades, a painful reminder of everything they'd lost. But to this day, we still don't know what happened to those children. Were they kidnapped, killed, or was it something even darker? Something that's better left undiscovered? And just when you think you've hit rock bottom with these unsolved cases, another mystery creeps up behind you, the Zodiac killer, a name shrouded in fear and infamy. Unlike the Sodder case, where the victims and suspects lived under the same roof, this was a nameless, faceless predator who hunted in the shadows. Between 1968 and 1969, terror struck Northern California as couples became the targets of a ruthless killer. But what really set him apart was his cruelty outside the acts themselves. He wrote letters, taunted the media, played with the public like puppets. And there were those ciphers. Encrypted challenges he dared us to solve, 4 of them in total. One of those codes was decrypted after 51 years. Did it reveal his identity? No. All it said was that he wasn't afraid of dying. He bragged he'd already taken lives, and he wasn't going to stop. What's terrifying is how deliberate he was. His methods at Lake Berryessa were theatrical, dressing in a hooded costume with his iconic crosshair logo painted on his chest, as though the act was part of some macabre performance. And yet, with all the letters, those chilling phone calls, and even a composite sketch based on a witness, he slipped through the net. How? Think about it. A case with so much evidence, so many clues, and yet here we are, still unsure of who he was. Some say it was Arthur Lee Allen, a man whose behavior and circumstantial links to the case pointed fingers in his direction. Others believe the Zodiac might not have been just one person, but a coordinated effort by multiple culprits. The theories are endless, but the fear remains the same. that he could outsmart police, evade capture, and shapeshift into obscurity. That's what makes him so unforgettable. Mysteries like these remind us of human fragility. The Sodder family fire and the Zodiac killer's calculated terror couldn't be more different at first glance, but they share a common thread. They left behind more questions than answers. They left behind pain that never really fades. They force us to confront the darkness in the world and within ourselves. Do we keep searching for these answers, or do we learn to live without them? But here's the thing about people. We don't give up. Investigators, citizen sleuths, families, and total strangers continue to dig, hoping to uncover that one overlooked detail that unlocks it all. Maybe it'll happen tomorrow, or maybe it never will. So, what do you think? Could the Sodder children have been swept away in a crime bigger than anyone realized? Was the Zodiac killer someone hiding comfortably in plain sight all along? Or are these mysteries destined to remain unsolved forever? I'm dying to hear your theories, so drop them in the comments below. And hey, if you love mysteries like this, stick around. It only gets creepier from here. Until next time, stay curious, keep digging, and most importantly, don't turn your back to the dark.